All right, back here live at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. Chris Brown, Steve Tasker, and pleased to be joined now by CBS NFL player and draft analyst Chris Trapasso, friend of the show. Good to have you here. Ticketmaster is the title sponsor of this year's NFL Scouting Combine coverage. Ticketmaster is the official ticketing partner of the NFL and the Buffalo Bills. Good to have you in. Thanks for getting in early, man.
Yeah, and it just worked out because you guys are the only ones doing a live show right now as everyone else is getting set up. I got in last night. You guys got in last night. So it made sense for me to come on early in the week.
We like to be ahead of the curve and on the cutting edge. I mean, that's what people say about us all the time.
We're so far ahead of the curve, they haven't even gotten their pencil out to draw the curve.
That's right. That's right. And we should start, I think, on the defensive side of the ball, Chris, because I think we largely believe that the bulk of Buffalo's draft class is going to be on that side of the ball, and for good reason. But my overarching question to begin is this. A few years ago, we saw Kansas City completely refortify their defense in one draft class. Amazing work by them, Brett Veach and the crew. Is this defensive class in 2025 deep enough for a team like the Bills to do something similar?
I think so. And it aligns with the Bills' needs, defensive tackle and edge rusher. If they want to add some young, cheaper talent to that side of the ball, we saw it with the Eagles totally refortifying their secondary with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. It was a strong cornerback class last year. This year, interior and on the edge, not just at pick 30, but later, round 2, round 3, round 4. If 2 or 3 of their first couple picks are on that side of the ball, those players, and then I'm still kind of saying along with some of those redshirt types from last year, Javon Solomon types, can really help change the reputation that we saw down the stretch for the Bills' defense.
Yeah, and that's how deep can we go into this? Because ideally, you want to get 2 or 3 contributors right away, right? So it's probably going to be at 3 different positions. I mean, we've talked Brownies we're like, let's get 3 D tackles or 2 D tackles for 3.
If I had my way, I would.
Right, and I get it, but certainly, yeah, okay, maybe 3 defensive guys in the top 3 picks, probably not. But we'll see, right? I mean, what are your thoughts about, how far down this draft goes where you might get some contributors?
To me, right now, the defensive tackle class, I think I have 10 defensive tackles with first or second round grades.
Wow.
That's a little bit ahead of where it normally is. The edge rusher group is just the same. So we could see a situation where it's a Greg Rousseau, Carlos Basham, where those are just going to be the best players available on the board, and those are the biggest positional needs. We can always hear GM say, hey, we're only going on our board, but we know those positional needs are kind of baked into it, so you would think the Bills will have defensive tackle and edge rusher, maybe just based on positional value and need, graded a little bit higher than some of the other positions like offensive line, like linebacker, where they really are stocked at those positions.
All right, so let's start up front, and let's go defensive tackle, because I really think that's going to be the position that sees the most turnover this offseason for the Bills. You got Jordan Phillips, a free agent. Jefferson's a free agent. We don't know what's going to happen with Daquan Jones, age 34. Is he a cap casualty? By the time you get to mid-March, you might have Dwayne Carter and Ed Oliver as your only defensive tackles on the roster. So with that in mind, let's kind of go day 1, day 2, understanding that the Bills do not have any third-round picks right now. They have 2 4s, so maybe they can couple that and jump into the third. But let's just say first 2 days.
Which they had 3 picks, the 2 second-rounders.
That's right, 2 second-rounders.
So
let's just hash that out at the defensive tackle position and who could be there at 30 and, day 2.
Well, a lot will hinge upon the combine because these guys are all 6 foot to 6'5", 300-plus pounders. We will get a good sense of their presumed range in the draft based on how they test, because teams do factor that in. And we know the Bills have really leaned into those big-time athletes, the Spencer Browns, the Josh Allens, the Tremaine Edmonds, Dawson Knox. So we will have a better understanding of where some of these D tackles will fall. Kenneth Grant, to me, based on Daquan Jones, he was bigger next to Ed Oliver. Star Latulele. The Bills like to have that complementary defensive tackle group. Kenneth Grant from Michigan, 6'3", like 330, but he gets up the field like he's closer to 300 pounds and is still a quality run defender. If he tests just okay. And it's all, based on weight, like you
Right.
guys know. If he tests just all right, he could be there at 30 for the Bills or within striking distance for a small trade up for Brandon Beane. That would be the perfect plug-in next to Ed Oliver.
This is one of those atmospheres as well where guys come in and out of left field, a guy drops in because his 40's fast, he's big, he's strong, he's athletic, he's got a big vertical, he got a lot. The guy from Texas A&M we were talking about before we came on the air, some of these guys are going to insert themselves into the conversation. The guy we keep mentioning, a guy like Isaiah Simmons from a few years ago, came into the combine, freakish athlete. But there's a reason nobody knows about him right now, right? There are guys like that. You've got to – if you don't show up in college, you're probably not going to show up in the pros.
Yeah, I've noticed with the Bills, we've understood this, with the Eagles too. You got to draft – I mean, it seems obvious, but I think some teams don't do this. Draft the high-caliber athletes that actually are pretty good football players. Maybe not finished products, but a Dawson Knox, even a Josh Allen. The athleticism was through the roof, but there were flashes there. There was that moldable ball of clay to build him into the quarterback that he is today. The one name that I'll say, defensive tackle, that could be that guy, Darius Alexander from Toledo. I don't know if you've watched his film yet, Chris.
A little bit, yeah.
He's really a do-everything type of player. He's 24, was in college for a while, but they were having him drop in coverage, rushing off the edge, playing nose tackle. With how much the Bills like to rotate up front, I think Darius Alexander could be that riser after the combine.
So let's talk position flex, too, because we know the Bills like guys that can line up on the interior, or if they're going to line up at edge, they can kick inside on passing downs, a la Greg Rousseau. I need a defensive tackle with position flex. Does this Norman Lott kid fit that bill? Because he's 315. Is he a one technique? Probably, right? He's more of a one than a three. But can he move? I don't know if you even need a three. If you have Oliver and Carter playing the three, maybe you just need a guy that can be a one that also offers run-stuffing ability. You got the huge kid from Kentucky.
Monster, 6'7", 340.
345, whatever
Walker.
they got him at, Deion Walker. So, I don't know, Derek Harmon's 310, but he plays thick, I think. And even the kid next to him, Jamari Caldwell at Oregon, 340. And a fire plug at 6'1". I'm of the opinion the Bills need a plugger. Who the hell cares if he only plays 2 downs? If you can get him in round 3, put him in there.
Yeah, that would probably be Jamari Caldwell from Oregon, 6'1", 340. But if you're talking position flex, you mentioned one of them.
Yeah.
Derek Harmon, my comparison for him is actually Daquan Jones. He's not quite the same body type, but can play 0, can play 1, can play like 5 all the way out.
Okay.
And then TJ Sanders from South Carolina is a name that Bills fans want to familiarize themselves with. Similar body type. He's a little bit smaller, like 6'4", 285, 290, but plays bigger than that.
Okay.
Played a lot in 3-man fronts at South Carolina. Probably a little bit smaller than what the Bills want, but if you want position flex, those two really stand out to me. If you want size, Kenneth Grant and Deion Walker are the two that can just be those 2-down pluggers and be really good specialists in that role.
I was giving Brownie a little trouble. Jamari Caldwell, the kid, the 6'1", 340-pounder
from Oregon.
He
goes head up on the center.
Yeah,
like
he goes.
There's not many guys that do that anymore.
Jeff Wright style,
He does seem like he's hard to move.
He's so thick in the lower half.
First of all, he's heavy and he's low, and it's hard to get under him to lift him out of there. And he also moves good laterally, which I was surprised to see.
Yeah, what will be interesting to see, like we've mentioned, the Bills in the Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott era have usually added this plugger via free agency or trade, and they've liked to have a veteran next to Ed Oliver. Now Ed Oliver's the veteran. I wonder if they go the cheaper route and say, we are going to develop a 320, 330-plus pound player instead of allocating money in free agency to one of those veterans.
Is there anybody in this defensive tackle class who is sliding a little bit? Like you watch the tape and you're like, man, why isn't that guy ranked higher? And obviously it's hard for people like us to know the character concerns unless they're publicized. Or maybe it's production. I know a lot of people are concerned about Shamar Stewart and his lack of production.
He can play in and out too, but you're right, lack of production.
Like a guy like the Florida State kid comes to mind. Josh Farmer. It's like, why are we not hearing more about him? Because he just seems to have great feet for a big man, A lot of lateral agility, and we're not hearing a lot about him. Do you have any idea what the rub is there?
Well, what I think happens a lot, and Joshua Farmer, I believe, was at the Senior Bowl. If guys don't have a big Senior Bowl week, they kind of can go into the Combine without a lot of buzz.
Yeah,
but this event, and like you said, Joshua Farmer on film at 6'3", 320, does have pretty light feet.
He can move.
This could be the week for him where suddenly it's like, hey, this is going to be an entrenched second-round pick who would be great value for the Bills to get that plugger that has some upside but can be a great run stopper right away.
I know fans, and we do the same thing. As soon as the Super Bowl's over, everybody looks at the Philadelphia Eagles and says, let's make our team like that. Let's get
whoever wins the Super Bowl, they copy
exactly.
that.
There's a recency bias. And here's the thing, too, that in these drafts, every team seems to have these positional needs now coming into this weeks like this where but teams don't really get caught up in that because they know when free agency hits, they're going to be able to fill the needs they have so that and the old the philosophy is, and it's league wide. Go into the draft so you can take the best player left on the board.
And Brandon Beane said that.
Yeah, that's the way they always want to do it. They're going to sign a ton of players before the draft so that when they get to the draft, even if they had 0 picks, they could still go into training camp. But the Bills are notorious for getting guys in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds that can really play.
Yeah.
How much there's only 300 guys that come into this. They pick 250 in the draft. And some of the guys, a handful that are picked that don't come to this. Always.
Sure.
How do you got to sort through, and for guys like us, we're trying to pick a drop out of the ocean.
It's tough.
Is what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think it's really important to pay attention to the draft on the 3rd day because you have your Khalil Shakirs and your Christian Benfords and the Bills scouting department and Brandon Beane and Dennis Locke running the analytics department. They put in their homework not just for the 1st and 2nd rounders for mock drafts. The Bills have a history, and I think they go into the 3rd day with a lot of confidence saying we can still get a quality player. And I think someone like Javon Solomon is going to end up being a quality player on this team. Yeah. So not just focusing your attention on the big free agent signings or the 1st and 2nd round picks, and the Bills have 3 of them, but on day 3 you can still get quality players, and the Bills have a proven track record of doing that.
Okay, so let's shift to the back end of the defense because I got to tell you, our callers, they are split down the middle as to where they feel the Bills should start in terms of refortifying their defense. Half of them say up front, half of them say on the back end.
Safety.
And when Sean McDermott came to town, he started on the back end with Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer and then drafted Tre'Davious White. I'm not saying he's going to definitely do that again this time, but which position do you feel offers more depth through the class? Does corner run deeper this year or does safety run deeper this year?
I think corner's a little deeper in terms of the high-caliber athletes that I think someone like a Sean McDermott and the rest of the coaching staff can mold into quality players. And what to me is the most fascinating part about that position with the Bills, with the new hiring of Ryan Nielsen and his background with man coverage, and we know that the Bills struggled a little bit with man. I'm sure you guys have talked about this.
But they played a lot more of it in the second half of the season.
They played a lot more of it, and there were times in the playoffs, especially against the Chiefs, where I was like, man, they just don't have the personnel necessarily to run a lot of man coverage. To me, that's a great alignment with this class where there's some players that are not finished products but are going to run 4.35 with 40-inch verticals and played the football well in coverage. Sean McDermott can really be that mentor and coach them and develop them into quality players.
One thing we know, they're not going to be afraid to pick anybody in those rounds. I mean, they're and start them.
Oh, no, you're right.
Christian Benford's a perfect example. Matt Milano, perfect example. All these guys, you get past the 3rd round, the Bills are expecting to give those guys a shot at starting on opening day even.
And what's so good about that is to kind of piggyback off your Christian Benford example. We were all surprised that year. We're like, wait, they picked Kyer Elam in the 1st round and this Villanova corner that some people, including myself, thought was going to be a safety in the NFL. He's starting week 1. They will make these picks. And there's probably some of it, hey, like we want the 1st rounder to play. But I really believe that Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott are in lockstep and they say, here's our draft class. Let them go to training camp and we are going to start and play whoever is the best player regardless of where they were picked.
All right, so at safety,
I like the safety class at the top.
There's an interesting group there, and I think you could get probably 12 on the first 2 days. I think there could be 12 safeties off the board the first 2 days. More on day 2, obviously, but all that being said, The players that interest me are either, one, the ones that are high-caliber athletes coming off major injuries, like a Winston Jr. from Penn State, and then guys that have demonstrated almost positionless ability, like a Xavier Watts, who gets recruited to Notre Dame as a wide receiver, then moves to defense and plays linebacker, and then his last 2 years plays safety and absolutely kills it from a production standpoint. Where does that guy fit in today's modern NFL?
I was going to mention Xavier Watts. He's not my number one safety right now because you got to factor in age and athleticism. But what you just outlined was perfect in that he feels like a Brandon Beane safety or Sean McDermott safety, where, like you mentioned, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, neither of those two were 45 or 42-inch verticals running 4.3, but they were so positionless they could excel at strong safety, at nickel linebacker, at free safety. Xavier Watts, check his production, through the roof, interceptions, pass breakups, tons of tackles. I don't know how well he's going to test, but maybe that's going to be music to the ears for the Bills, that all of a sudden he's available in round 2 or maybe even later.
In my experience, it's hard for some guys, even elite athletes, to step up and go from playing even Michigan, Ohio State, and all these big schools into the NFL because everybody on the field is at least a step higher. So at the top of this draft, you got a kid like Travis Hunter, who is corner, wide receiver, and he's an elite athlete, no question. Now, he's playing for a head coach in Deion, who was the same.
Yeah, he knows.
Deion could return. I mean, he was unbelievable. How likely is it in today's NFL that you get a guy that is going to have a real shot at contributing on both sides of the ball?
That's a great question, and hopefully at the bars and restaurants here in Indy we can get some more nuggets from the scouts that I've heard going in have told me he's probably just going to be a corner that's going to have some packages on the offensive side.
Yeah, like red zone.
Yes, like red zone, jet sweep on 3rd and 2, something like that. What I was so blown away by watching Travis Hunter this year, and you're right, he is an elite-level athlete. Speed, smoothness, flexibility, balance, all that. The nuance that he showed at wide receiver. I mean, to go and try to play wide receiver all of a sudden, it's a totally different thing.
Yeah.
And he was making catches back shoulder, yards after the catch. The route running was good. He tracks the football like Willie Mays. Travis Hunter, to me, could play either spot. I just don't think a team that's going to use a top 3 or top 5 pick on him is going to want him out there 70, 80, 90, 100 snaps a game like he did at Colorado.
I don't know. Maybe,
I mean, he could do it. Maybe he could do it.
Depends.
He's not a big body, though. He could get worn down.
It might depend on the leadership at the top of the organization.
Yeah.
If you get a guy at one of the teams that says, dude, we drafted the kid and we're paying him all, get him on the field.
And what I wonder, too, if it does come to the philosophy with how he's used where, hey, he's just going to be in some wide receiver packages. But on those plays, he's creating big plays. How long would it take to be like, hey, maybe we should play him more in a full-time role on the offensive side?
I pound Brownie with this all the time. The elite guys, we see a bunch of athletes, and we've mentioned a couple of them today that are great athletes that couldn't play football at the next level. And the difference is what they have from the neck up.
Yeah.
Now, you look at a kid like Travis Hunter. If he's got the nuances of both sides of the ball, it does speak to an intelligence that's uncommon.
Great point.
If that is the case, the smarter the guy is, the better he's going to do, and the more he's going to outperform expectations. The more intelligent he. Not forget about the gifts. Now, if you see that he's gifted like he is,
and he's got the intelligence,
we may be once in a lifetime.
And I would just say to that, you're right. There's a distinct possibility that he's an elite athlete, and we probably will see him test here a little in Indy. You see it on the film with his nuance, but like Chris said, I think maybe the only hindrance to that will just be the wear and tear on the body because he's like 6'1", 180, 190 pounds, not very big. But like you said, he has the combination of elite athleticism and nuance that we've never really seen since maybe Deion Sanders.
Yeah. All right,
we are up against the break here, but thanks for stopping by, Chris. You can check Chris Trapasso's work at cbssports.com. Just look at the top bar there, and you got the NFL tab, and then you hit the drop-down menu, and NFL Draft is there. All his stuff is, like, lined up there in a row. So be sure to check that out as we get closer and closer to the NFL Draft.